There's never a dull moment when searching through old newspapers. So, without further ado, let's get into it on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. So today we're going to start in San Francisco in 1867. I was surprised to see something talking about billiard tables in 1867. I was thinking, pool tables have been around that long? And then I went to go see how long they've actually been around, and I was interested to find out that billiard tables have been around for over hundreds of years. Here's one in 1704. According to Billiard Congress of America, no one knows exactly when or where the first billiard table was built. The earliest documented record of a billiard table was made in 1470 during an inventory of the possessions of King Louis XI of France, and his table was said to have contained the following: a bed of stone, a cloth covering, and a hole in the middle of the table where the balls would have been driven. A fun fact from this website: during the Civil War, billiard results sometimes received wider coverage than war news. Billiard players were so renowned that cigarette cards were issued featuring these players. I did not know all that, did you? Here are some cigarette cards with Civil War generals on them. So now we're up to 1881. I found this one interesting. 6 representatives from 3 Indian tribes stopped by the Newhall House in Wisconsin on their way back from a trip from Washington State. Sidetrack here a sec, this building was actually burned to the ground 2 years later. Anyways, Chief Iron Nation from the Low Brule tribe, along with others known as Medicine Bull, Buffalo Cow Killer, Little Pheasant, Bullhead, and Big Mane are here. I could only find photos of these 2 though. Now, the article describes what each of the men looked like, which was interesting, and at some point during their visit, they sang and danced some of their battle songs, and it says, to which the colored gentlemen took much delight, waving their hats and blankets to the songs. Later, they were given a little tour around town in a carriage, and they stopped at the Pabst Brewery. It says that the Indians were amazed at what they were shown. And I love this part. It says, at dinner at the Newhall House, ice cream was served, and all but one ate it with a fork. One of them spread the ice cream on his bread, another one put it on his meat, and one ate it with a spoon, finishing it in 2 fell swoops, which resulted in a brain freeze. And he grabbed his forehead with both of his hands and yelled, "Ugh!" It finished up the article by saying that they seemed to enjoy their visit, and they especially liked being talked to by the ladies. So now we're at 1890. This seems to be a column where you can write in with questions, and so here's someone asking, can someone tell me if those well-behaved and tamed zebras in Barnum and Bailey's circus are real ones, or are they painted mules? The response is that they are genuine zebras. Now, here we are at 1892, and here's a story of a 26-year-old French lieutenant who had thrown himself in front of the engine of a train coming into the station. His body was fearfully mangled, the legs and head being severed from the body. 1893. Here we go. Miss George Williams has finished her 40-day fast for the purification of the body, and is now in condition to receive revelations from the Holy Spirit, enabling her to predict just when the world will end. Her husband happens to be President Grant's Attorney General, and she is the leader of a group that believes that the world is about to end. I wonder if there was ever a time in history where we didn't think the world was about to end. Okay, so here's a freaky one. 1895. The body of a man was found floating in the water of an abandoned stone quarry in Wisconsin. It was with considerable difficulty that the body was taken out of the water, being that a large stone was fastened to the waist, and his coat pockets were filled with more stones. Foul play is suspected. They estimate his body had been in the water for 2 months. He hasn't been identified as of this article. And here's a sad one. Little Annie Colt, 5 years old, was on her way home from school when she was struck by a car. which in 1895 would have looked like this one. She was run over by the wheels, which cut off both of her legs, and she only survived a few minutes after that. Poor baby. 1896. A bit of advice. If your maid is a little cross sometimes, don't scold her for something that she did wrong, provoking a saucy answer and dismissing her on the spot. Instead, keep away from her if it's possible until she's in a better mood. It might require some self-control on your part, but remember she is human and you feel cross sometimes yourself. And you are sorry enough for it afterwards. Probably she will be too. Now here's something I didn't know. 1896. It may not be generally known that Mary Stuart, Queen of Scotland, set the trend of the white wedding dress. Up until then, yellow, pink, or crimson were bridal colors. It says on her marriage with Francis II, Mary wore a pure white gown with a train of pale blue Persian velvet 6 yards long. Until the beginning of the 18th century, white was worn by royal widows, apparently, but it soon became popular for bridal dresses. I did not know that. 1906. Alonzo Jones and Lizzie Burke of Oregon were married. The bride is 29 and the groom is 48. This is the third marriage for both of them. The bride already divorced twice, and the husband has already buried 2 wives. I can't see anything that could go wrong here. Here's a 1907 ad for a home heater. Look how ornately designed that is. Apparently this uses coal to heat. So here we are in 1909. Sarah Coton killed a man, and it doesn't say how, but she pleaded guilty. And when she showed up in court with her baby in her arms, Supreme Court Justice Blanchard spared her the prison sentence. Instead, he put her in the custody of the Council of Jewish Women, who would find her a suitable home and change her name so that she can raise her child in ignorance of the crime its mother committed. Also in 1909, I think they're reaching a little on this one, it says, because her husband failed to kiss her goodbye when he went to work, Lena Annadelsberger, 18 years old, bride of 3 weeks, shot and killed herself. I'm pretty sure there's probably a little bit more to it than that, but okay. Moving on that same page of that paper, we learn about how robbers spent at least 10 days digging under 4 buildings to reach the vaults of a bank. The robbery happened over the weekend, and it wasn't noticed until Monday morning. The robbers didn't actually get into the vault, although they tried. They did, however, find about $1,500. And it says, quote, the police have no clue. And $1,500 was a substantial amount of money then, so... Alright, so now we're up to 1925, and these two are suspected to be the youngest grandparents in the United States. She's just 30 years old, and her husband is 35. Their 16-year-old daughter just had a baby on Sunday. So that means this 30-year-old grandma was 14 when her daughter was born. Alright, so here's another 1925. I got a kick out of this one. Bare legs barred during tennis week at this certain beach in Long Island. It says, all women bathers wearing jersey bathing suits without stockings. See, the girls here at the bottom are wearing stockings with theirs. Anyways, if you're not wearing stockings between the hours of 11 and 1 p.m., you will be required to wear a cape to and from the water by order of the Women's Committee. It says during those hours, more men visit the beach, and it also says some observers recently noticed bare legs with jeweled anklets and garters with watches. Bare legs with anklets, you don't say. Here in 1933, a Chevy goes for between $400 and $600. And I was thinking that seems like a lot of money for that time. The average income was between $1,000 and $1,500 a year. But if you think about nowadays, I guess cars do go for about 1 year's income for a lot of people. So here we are at 1934. A mother is writing to the CWA headquarters asking for aid, saying that she has triplets, 3 girls, whom she named for the NRA, Nancy, Ruth, and Ann. In 1940, booming business for Chevy, who had built its 700,000th model, which comes about a month after they built their 600,000th model. Here's 1946. President Truman adds a certain swagger to his morning walk in Independence, Missouri by carrying a cane. My interest in this little article is just the use of the word swagger in 1946. It kind of made me giggle. So here we have a new camera and a case, and it fetches just under $4 in 1946. Also, in 1946, a woman called the cops after she shot and killed her husband. She says he was brutal to her, and the final straw was when he came home late to find his dinner was cold. The two toddlers were in bed by the time this happened. He says, "This is all I get?" And she says, "You're lucky to have that." Then he shoved her up against the wall, and he says, "You have till this weekend to get out." Later, he went to take a bath, put on his pajamas, and read the paper. She went to go get a gun and came in and pointed the gun at him and shot him in the chest. After he'd been shot, he asked her to light him a cigarette while he was dying, so she did, and then she called the police, and he died at the hospital. She later explains that ever since he came back from overseas, he was physically cruel. She says, "In ways I can't even tell you." She says he choked her regularly. She says it's been 7 months of this, and he admitted that he had been seeing other women as well. She was crying while she was telling her story, and when she was asked if she was sorry that she killed her husband, she stared at her bag, and she whispered, "I don't know." So, I was interested in what happened to her after this, but I only found her one time, and that was in 1950, so this would have been 4 years later, and she's with her 2 boys, she's widowed, her occupation is ironing, but I don't see her after that, so I assume her name changed. She probably got remarried, but I don't know what her name changed to, so I don't have a name to search. But I couldn't find anything on the boys either. So let's finish out with a fun fact. The name Dog Days comes from the fact that around August, the dog star Sirius rises at dawn. It says in ancient Egypt, this period was also called Nile Days, since the Nile overflowed in August. And that's going to do it for today. It's always a roller coaster when I do these, but I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.